all by my lonesome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater, and I am your chairperson this afternoon. And I am joined on the panel by Mr. Doug Marks to my left, and via Zoom, Mr. Clay Purvis. Our city assessor is Mr. Drew Thiessen, and our administrative personnel is Ms. Fran Picoto. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will be then permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. Statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This afternoon, we will be hearing items 3 through 6 on our docket. And Ms. Picoto, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Drew Thiessen.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Carson Horsborough.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Horsberg and Mr. Thiessen. And good afternoon to you, Mr. Purvis. I didn't speak to you prior to the beginning of this. Mr. Thiessen, whenever you are ready, you can read us through on 203 Collegiate Street.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the subject property is located at 203 Collegiate Street, roll number 070-203-27000. It's located in the King Edward neighborhood. It's vacant land, use code of VRES 1. The zoning is R1M for medium builds, and the lot size is 35 square feet. It does have land influences of commercial adjacent and internal corner. The commercial adjacent being that it is located behind a chiropractor's office across a back lane, and the internal corner being for being on that back lane at the corner of Collegiate and the back lane. The subject is currently developed as and is being used as a parking lot, a paved parking lot. And the comparables are all located in also the King Edward neighborhood. They are all zoned R1M, same as the subject. And the lot sizes range between 2397 square feet to 2712 square feet. Comparables 2 and 4 do have land influences. Comparable 2 has a bus route, community rec building, and medium traffic influence, while comparable 4 has a commercial adjacent and medium traffic influence. The medium traffic influences for both properties are for being on Ferry Road, and the commercial adjacent for comparable 4 is for being across the street from an automotive mechanic. All of these properties did sell as true vacant land. Comparables 3 and 4 did sell privately, but they were sold as vacant land with arm's length transactions. The parties did not appear to be related in any way. The current assessed value we have is 148,000 or 4309 per square foot. And the time adjusted sale prices for the comparables range between 151,800 to 184,600, or per square foot. That ranges from 6315 to 6807. Based on that, I believe that the value is supported at the current value at 148 and 148,000. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horsberg, did you have any questions for the assessor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions for the assessor. Mr. Thiessen, just looking at your comparables on page 1 of your disclosure, in terms of the location of the subject or of the comparable sales, would you describe the 4 comparables as being in a superior or inferior location as compared to the subject property?
They are very similar in that they are all in the King Edward neighborhood. One of them, or 2 of them actually, sorry, are located south of Ness, and 2 of them are located north of Ness.
So would you say that they're in a superior location?
Similar neighborhood.
But location-wise similar, but not superior, not inferior?
No, particularly with comparable 4 being across the street from that mechanic, and then comparables 2 and 4 both having the medium traffic influence.
Okay, and then comparables 1 and 3 sold at a similar price per square foot as the other 2. Comparables 1 and 3, mid-block location, not close to Portage Avenue, not close to Ness. You would say that's a similar location as the subject?
Relatively so. So comparable 4, that is very close to Ness, and it is across from that mechanic as well. So that is something that we would be looking at there. And then comparable 2 is on Ferry Street, so fairly visible, fairly busy street. Has lots of through traffic.
Okay, thank you. And then would you say that these properties, would you say in general it's a good thing to be located a stone's throw from Portage Avenue?
It would not be ideal. However, the comparables, particularly 2 and 4, being located where they are on that busy through street, is kind of reflective of that as well.
Okay. Are you aware if any of the comparable sales, were any of these properties involved in a lot split where the lot was subdivided?
Comparables 3 and 4 were subdivided prior to the sales. So they were divided and then sold for just the smaller lot. I think the owners kept the other lots. I didn't look too far into it because I was only concerned about the actual sale lots. I don't believe the other 2 were. One of them actually could not be. It was advertised. Comparable 2, I believe, was advertised. Oh no, sorry, I was looking at one of your comparables. Disregard.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Purvis, any questions for the assessment?
Sure, I just want to confirm all of the comparable properties you used are bare lots as well.
Yes, comparable to actually wasn't it, but it was advertised as house to be demolished by seller before possession. So it's a vacant lot because the seller was actually doing the demolition.
Okay, so, and are any of the other comps being used as parking lots, or are they just vacant lots ready to be?
Vacant lots as far as I can tell.
That's my only questions for you.
And Mr. Marks?
My question has been asked and answered, thank you.
Mr. Thiessen, your brief was model driven?
No, I pulled these comparables myself.
Okay. And sorry, and how do you know this lot is being used as a parking lot?
I did a view of it in satellite view and Google Street View. It's also supplied in the applicant's evidence as well.
Okay. And who is using this as a parking lot?
That I'm not sure.
So no consideration then to assess this as a parking lot?
Well, we do have it classed as a class 60, so it's an other property, given that it is not a residential property right now. So that is something that we are looking at in terms of how it is taxed.
Okay. And do you know how many cars are being parked on this?
I'm not sure exactly what on this particular property, because I believe that there is more parking lots extending from this property. So I'm not entirely sure.
Right, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Forsberg, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make the panel aware that I've also submitted rebuttal for this property. So I can speak to my rebuttal later on.
All right, thank you.
So I'll begin with my presentation. So the property, as we're aware, is 203 Collegiate Street with an assessed value of $148,000. MNP has valued the subject property, and we've determined that an appropriate and fair market value would be $120,000. Now, if the board will follow me through to page 8 of my disclosure, we have the City of Winnipeg assessment and taxation breakdown for the property, noting that the property is listed as VRES 1, vacant residential 1 land, total area of 3,435 square feet, with notable influences commercial adjacent and internal corner. On page 5 of the disclosure, we have the breakdown as to how we have determined the market value for the subject property. It is worth noting that the year-over-year assessment change for the subject property was 45.1% during a time period between April 1, 2021 and April 1, 2023. The assessment for the subject property increased by 45%. During that time period, the market for land and real estate in Winnipeg did not increase by 41 or 45%. So a bit of an outlier in terms of valuations for Winnipeg here. Real estate market didn't appreciate by 45% during those 2 years. Moving on to page 6, we have the assessment map and aerial photograph of the subject property. We can see that the property is a stone's throw from Portage Avenue and is next to commercial properties along Portage Avenue. On page 7, again, I can confirm that the property is vacant and is used as a parking lot. Moving on to page 8, we have a bit of a discussion as to how we've determined what the appropriate land rate would be for the subject property. we've determined that a land rate of $35 per square foot is representative of the market for this type of a property. Sales of vacant land similar to the subject are few and far between in the neighborhood, given that it is a vacant piece of land that has certainly a negative traffic and a negative commercial influence, which limits its marketability as a residentially zoned piece of land. So I've looked at a couple of sales nearby. 476 Collegiate being advertised as a tear down property, sold for land value. Again, sold slightly under what the subject property has been assessed at. 434 Golf Boulevard, close to the subject, but in a superior location. Again, selling for less than the subject assessment. 2376 Portage, residential land parcel, vacant, while significantly larger than the subject property. I did include it because it does give you an idea as to what residential land so close or literally on Portage Avenue is selling for. And then 330 Linwood being another vacant residential sale. So looking at these sales, vacant lots, quite a range in terms of what they sell for on a per square foot basis. So MNP's requested value of $35 per square foot is quite reasonable with all these considerations in mind. If the board will follow me now onto page 9 of the disclosure, I have provided the general reassessment map that the city of Winnipeg provides. Looking in the neighborhood of St. James, Market Region 5, we can see that property values in general, the median increase was 4% between April 1st, 2021 and April 1st, 2023. So a 4% increase being the median. The subject property is increased by 45%. We can see here something's not right. Something does not make sense. If property values are going up by 4%, why would this property go up by 10 times that figure? It's not in line with the market, and it's not supportable. Moving on to pages 10 and 11, I've provided aerial photographs of some of the comparable properties. And then on page 12, again, we have the value breakdown for the subject property, looking at the square footage of the property with a market land rate of $35 a square foot. We arrive at the estimated market value of $120,000. And with that, I respectfully ask that the board revise the assessment to reflect the fair market value, and I would welcome any questions now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thiessen, any questions?
I do. Thank you very much. So as you included it in your brief, I did want to ask you about the percentage change information that you provided. Personally, I wouldn't put a lot of stock into percentage increase between cycles, as they're not necessarily going to be reflective of any specific property, and really they're just measurements of central tendency for the whole neighborhood. But with that being the case, were you aware that the percentage increase document that you did provide is actually for improved properties and not for vacant land?
I included the residential document, and seeing as the city classifies the property as VRES1, vacant residential, I felt that it was probably reflective. I'm not aware if the city produces a separate report for land values.
Okay, so yeah, that document is just for improved residential properties, not for vacant. So moving on then, you mentioned that 476 Collegiate Street is a tear down. So it isn't a vacant land sale, but it is, you said, advertised as a tear down. But the property didn't actually state that it was a tear down. It said it was sold in as-is condition in the MLS listing. But there on that listing was no indication of what, if any, deficiencies were actually present. So are you aware of what deficiencies, if any, were present at the time of that sale?
I'm aware that the property was marketed more as a land value property as opposed to a fixer-upper.
Okay, so then were you aware that the building that was present at the time of the sale is still present today, nearly 2 full years yet later?
Uh, I'm not aware.
Okay. So generally, if someone was purchasing the property solely for the land in an area that has current and expected uses as low density residential, they would likely demolish any buildings or at least pull the permits to demolish the buildings fairly quickly after the sale, correct?
Not necessarily. I'm not going to speculate on. Some people purchase a property, hold on to it for a couple of years, and then redevelop. Depends a bit on the market.
But
And
fairly commonly.
all of your comparable properties have since been redeveloped with homes.
But fairly commonly, like if someone purchased an improved property and bought it for the land, they're usually purchasing with the intention of redeveloping, and they would likely demolish fairly soon afterwards in order to accomplish that redevelopment.
I'm not going to speculate. It depends on what they want to accomplish, and everyone has a different timeline. I mean, I've seen properties sit vacant for years on end without being demolished and redeveloped.
Okay. So then just generally, if vacant land sales are available, would you agree that it would be better to look at those to determine what the value for another vacant parcel would be, rather than attempting to adjust for unknown motivations and conditions on an improved lot, and then trying to extrapolate what value would be attributed to the land in those cases?
I would agree with that. Pure vacant land sales are certainly better than looking at a property with a tear down house, trying to figure out what do they spend on the tear down, and trying to work through the numbers that way. It's certainly better to have a pure piece of vacant land.
So then looking at your comparables, you provided mostly comparables not in the same direct neighborhood, correct?
In St. James,
So they're in the larger St. James neighborhood, but if you break it down into specific neighborhoods rather than the large general area, you're looking at one property in the King Edward neighborhood, one in the Kirkfield neighborhood, one in the Birchwood neighborhood, and one in the Deer Lodge neighborhood. Is that right?
I went with the general assessment map for St. James in terms of determining or choosing my comparable sales. I went off the same map that the city uses for the market region.
Okay, so you're looking at the market region, not the actual neighborhood itself.
That's correct. I'm looking at the market region.
Okay. And then you said that in your brief that these are superior neighborhoods, superior locations.
I would say that Gulf Superior, in general, yeah, I would agree that all of my comparables are superior location to the subject.
Okay, so then would you agree that it would generally be best to look at properties that are most similar in location to a subject property to determine a subject's property value, given that the most significant factor in real estate is its actual location?
I agree. The most significant factor is the location. The subject property is unique, given it's a stone's throw from Portage Avenue, given that it is commercial adjacent, given that it is right next to a large commercial development. So there aren't any really one-for-one comparable sales that I was able to look at for the subject property, given all the negative factors it has working against it.
Okay. And then you valued the property kind of on the basis of the time adjusted sale price per lot area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And all of the comparables that you provided, except for 476 Collegiate, which we've already established was an improved sale at the time of its sale with questionable motivations. So
I disagree
you
with the questionable motivations. I don't think
are
either
you
of us have provided evidence as to what the motivations were for that sale.
so were you they're all of the comparables except for that one, the improved sale. They're all at least 2317 square feet larger than the subject. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are you familiar with the principle of diminishing returns, where as the lot size increases, you typically expect to see the price per square foot would decrease?
I am familiar with that.
Okay. And then would you agree that this principle is even kind of exemplified in your own comparables, where the smallest lot has the largest price, or sorry, the highest price per square foot, and the largest lot has the lowest price per square foot?
It's anecdotal, but yes.
Okay. So that is all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Burgess, any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple about some of your comparables here. Specifically 2376 Portage Avenue. Looking at the picture, the satellite overhead of that, looks like it backs onto the river, the Assiniboine River.
That's correct.
And do you know why like normally river properties are substantially more valuable than non-river properties? Do you know of any, is there something with this land that it impedes the development of it? I mean, it just sort of seems odd to be able to buy a river lot that inexpensively.
Yes, so that lot zoning prohibits anything apart from single family residential. So anyone who would be buying that property, or the person who did buy that property when it's sold, they're limited to their development opportunities are limited to single family residential. That's why ultimately I included it. It gives you an idea as to the limited demand that there is for single family vacant lots, right on Portage Avenue. So that property sold for what it sold, I think in large part because of how loud that location would be.
And do we know if that was an arm's length transaction? Was it a private sale?
As far as I'm aware, it was an arm's length transaction, and the property is still vacant as of today.
Okay. And I'm also looking at your comp on Gulf. When I look at the overhead picture, there's a structure kind of to the northwest. Well, I don't know if that's actually the northwest, but the top left corner, there's a structure there. What is that? It looks like a hockey rink.
It's a hockey rink. Yeah, I believe, I can't remember if it's the Westwood Community Center that's nearby, but I believe there's a community center or a school right nearby.
And then there's a field behind it as well, it looks like.
That's right.
And do you know how long the subject property, how long it's been a parking lot? Like how long has it been vacant land?
That's a good question. I believe my client purchased the property would have been maybe 2018. And it's been vacant or used as a parking lot prior to him acquiring it, I believe. So
Okay.
it's been quite a long time.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Burns.
Yes, properties in question has been used for parking lot since 2018.
As far as I'm aware, it could have been prior to that as well. I'm not sure. I believe that's when my client acquired the property.
And are these spots rented out on a monthly basis?
They aren't. My client owns the adjacent property, so they're used as staff parking lots, as for staff parking.
Is there electrical on site for the cars?
That I'm not sure. They might have plugs, might not. I could have a quick second look on the street view if that's okay. See if I can make it out. 1 second. It looks like there are plugs, yes.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. My questions have been asked and answered. So if you would like to proceed with your rebuttal, I'm just going to make sure, Mr. Thiessen, you have the rebuttal.
I do not have a rebuttal. Thank you.
Just-
It was the applicant has a rebuttal.
I thought. Oh, no, sorry. Mr. Marsberg has rebuttal
Yes.
to these, correct? So that's what you said that out? Yep. So that's what I'm asking you, Mr. Thiessen. Sorry if you have it.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I misunderstood. Yes, I do have the rebuttal evidence. Yes. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Purvis, you also have it?
Yes, I do.
All right. If you would like to go ahead with this, Mr. Marsberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the reason I submitted rebuttal for this property, primarily it's because the city, in support of their assessed value, they're relying on residential developable land parcels. So there are really two main issues with this property. For one, the property as it exists with R1M zoning in place, the property can't be developed with any sort of residence. A variance would have to be passed to allow for development on that property. So I'll start on page, let's start on page 3 of the rebuttal evidence. So in particular, I wanted to draw the board's attention to the assessor's inclusion of comparable 4. So if you look at the zoning table I've included on page 3 here, R1 medium zoning, that's what the subject property has. That's what all of the assessor's comparable sales have. So prior to that property being sold, a variance was passed, and that variance allowed for the lot to be subdivided into 2 different lots, and it also allowed for whoever bought the property to redevelop it, despite the lot being too small as per zoning regulations. In theory, the lot would have had to have been at least 3,500 square feet in order to develop it with a residential building. That wasn't the case for the subject property. A variance was passed. Seeing as someone else did all the work of having the variance passed, understandably, they're going to want to be rewarded for that work, and they were able to achieve a higher selling price for the subject or for that property than what the subject property could achieve, as the subject property also falls below that threshold. So if someone were to purchase the subject property and want to redevelop it, well, they would have to go through all the pain and headaches associated with having a variance passed. So as it currently stands, as per R1 medium zoning, the subject property cannot be developed with any sort of residential structure. And then, just on pages 6 and 7 of the disclosure, I've included the maps showing the R1M zoning for comparable 4, and on page 7, the R1M zoning for the subject property. And on page 8, I've included the zoning table as well. That's from property planning and development. So in general, I try to keep my rebuttal pretty brief. Those are the main points that I wanted to make the board aware of. And with that, I would welcome any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Thiessen, any questions?
I do. Thank you very much. So given the comparable 4 that you had mentioned had the variance approved for a smaller lot, to be developed on a smaller lot, do you feel that the difference of 65 square feet on the subject lot below what the 3,500 square foot allowable development is, Do you feel that that may be not a precedent for that there might be a variance allowed on this subject property?
Ultimately, whether a variance is going to be approved or not, that's calculated into the risk that any willing buyer would purchase the property. They would be calculating that risk. There are no precedents with variances as they're set. It's up to property planning and development. It's up to the public service. It's up to oftentimes even council members to make those decisions. So while it's close to the minimum allowable size, ultimately there are no precedents with variances, and it will be up to the either the counselors who listen to the variance appeal or to the public service to make that decision. Anyone who would be purchasing that property would know that there's a risk that you can't get a variance approved.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Purvis?
Along those lines, you don't know when the previous structure was torn down. It was already down by the time your client purchased the property.
Yes, my understanding is that it's been a vacant parcel for some time.
Okay. And under the current rules, the property is too small to build even a single family residence on?
That's correct. They would have to apply for a variance because they don't meet those minimum lot requirements.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would assume at some point, so it's zoned residential, so I'd assume at some point in history, the rules were different.
Yes. I like personally, like the house that I own and live in, it's the lot technically is too small. But I would imagine if I were to burn down, the city would let me rebuild my house or put something up. So there is flexibility, but at the same time, there's also the risk of when you're purchasing a vacant piece of land, buyer beware. The city's under no obligation to allow that variance.
Okay, that's my only question. I was just a little puzzled by how you couldn't build a house, like, because you talked about rezoning and the area is already zoned for residential. So, but you've explained it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marks?
Just one question. So this lot is considered R1 small?
It's considered R1 medium.
Medium. But it's under the minimum lot size of 3,500.
That's correct. If it were larger than 3,500 square feet, no variance would be needed in order to redevelop the site.
So presently, a variance would be required to build on this lot.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, and I have no questions. Does either party have a wish for a summation on this?
I will. Thank you very much. I'd just like to state that I have provided very good comparables in the exact same neighborhood as the subject. They are all smaller in size, and given the variance that he has mentioned in his rebuttal, that these are all smaller than the allowable lot size. And I believe that several of these have been developed since the time of purchase. So I have provided these comparables that do support the current value at the 148,000, and I would wish that you confirm the value. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Horsberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a desire for just a brief summation. The assessment department, in defense of their value, they've pointed solely to nice, easily developable mid-block properties. No one in the market is going to look at a nice mid-block lot where you can easily build a single family home and pay the same price as they would for a vacant lot that is right on a commercial back lane, right next to commercial properties, and a stone's throw from a loud and busy street. The defense of the assessed value based on very nice vacant land sales, it doesn't make any sense. Today in my presentation, I've provided the board with ample evidence that the assessed value is unfair in relation to comparable sales. And respectfully, I would thank the board for their time today and ask that they revise the assessment to reflect the fair market value. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for appearing this afternoon, Mr. Hersberg.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
You as well.
Too.
Thanks.
And question.
64 Arnold.
Oh, all right. So item number 4. Mr. Thiessen, you have had no contact, correct?
I have not.
We have not heard anything. No. So we are going to move item number 4 to the end of our docket. And we will proceed to item number 5, which is 64 Arnold Avenue.
Thank you. Doesn't matter which one.
Whichever.
Okay.
And I will just, sorry, I'll just have you stand for the other.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. Mr. applicant, please state your full name.
Kenneth Donald Harding.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Good afternoon, Mr. Harding.
Good afternoon. How is everyone today? Good.
And we will just have Mr. Thiessen start us off with his property. Mr. Thiessen, if you could proceed with 64 Arnold, please.
Yes, thank you. So the subject property is 64 Arnold Avenue, roll number 120-975-58800. It's located in the Riverview neighborhood. It is a vacant land parcel with zoning of R1M, and it has 3,502 square feet of lot size. And it also has a park influence, with the park being across the street from the subject. The comparables are all located in the Riverview neighborhood as well. They are all vacant land as well, and they are all zoned as R1M as well. The lot sizes for the comparables are either 2,501 square feet or 2,502 square feet. And all of the comparables do have land influences. Comparable 4 has the exact same park land influence, with the park being across the street. And then comparables 1 through 3 have bus route, light traffic, and then comparable 1 has a bus stop as well. The time adjusted sale prices for the comparables ranges between 171,100 to 233,900, and the time adjusted sale price per lot size for the comparables ranges between 68.41 per square foot to 93.52 per square foot. With the exception of comparable 3, all of these properties did sell with the building on it, and demolition permits were applied for within 5 months of the purchase. So it's suggesting highly that these properties were purchased for the land to be redeveloped. The current assessed value is 194,000 or 55.40 per square foot, and I believe that that value is supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, did you have any questions on what the assessor has just stated?
I can't really speak to the properties on Morley Avenue. Concerning the property 28 Arnold, that did have a house on it and was purchased for renovation. It was determined once the renovation began that it was not, they didn't have the ability to renovate it properly, and at that point it was torn down. It did have a 3-bedroom home in it on that property when it sold for 210,000. I'm familiar with most of these properties. I lived in the area for over 50 years. The only one I can confirm didn't have a house would be 123 Morley. That was a 50-foot lot they subdivided. Concerning the other ones, they did have homes on them. I'm confused with the 191 Morley. In that, when I look at it now, it's been rebuilt and it's 191 and 191B. I'm not sure what that means. I just got this information today, so I really haven't had a lot of time to look at it. I didn't realize that I had been sent a return document on the 7th. In that I had to send on the 6th, I would have expected something in return on the 6th, but irregardless, I'm familiar enough with the area to speak to some of these issues. Again, these properties in comparison had houses on them. And I can't say, I don't know why they're classified as vacant. In my searches, I see nothing like that at all.
Okay, Mr. Harding, I'm just gonna stop you there, because we're looking for questions and you're
Oh,
stating more
No,
evidence.
no,
But maybe,
I was responding to his,
maybe, Mr. Thiessen, could you just answer the applicant's question in regards to why it's vacant land instead of?
Yes, yes.
Thank
I
you.
was going to kind of get into that if given the opportunity. So, as you had mentioned, comparable 3 was sold as a true vacant lot. So that one is an actual vacant land sale. Comparable 1, at the time of its sale, did sell as an improved lot, but within 1 month, there was a demolition permit applied for. So it's pretty clear there that the people who did purchase the lot intended for it to be redeveloped. They purchased it for the land value. Comparable 2, same situation, but within 2 months, they had applied for a demolition permit. And then comparable 4, same thing, but then 5 months, and then there was a demolition permit applied for.
yeah, I'm familiar with that one the most. I saw them begin the renovation and then give up on it.
All right. Mr. Purvis, did you have any questions to the assessor?
Yeah, I just have, looking at the map, it's the where with locations. I wish the city would just use Google Earth for these instead of its sort of this rendering. I see where the park is, and then there's Churchill Drive. Are there houses on Churchill Drive sort of backing onto the other side of the park? Or is it clear all the way to the river?
No, there's not.
Sorry.
That's all river.
Sir,
Oh,
sorry, this is the
yeah.
assessor's
I was going to say the same thing. I believe that it is all just straight river. I don't believe there are any houses there.
So those houses on Arnold are not just looking at a park, they're also then looking at Red
The
River.
dike.
Yeah.
And based on the question that was asked for you regarding comp number 4, the other house on Arnold, does the record show, was there another sale after, like, it sounds like someone bought the property, started to renovate. Does it look like that purchasers who then got the demolition permit, or was there another sale that intervened that?
I didn't see another sale in the 5-month period. So I believe it's the same owner who purchased this and then demolished the house. So it sounds like possibly they started doing a renovation and decided it's not worth it if we're just going to demolish the house. I was not aware of that
I'm just
until now.
curious to make sure it was still the same party that bought, which we can only speculate. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had one other question.
Yeah.
The subject property is already vacant land. There's no house on it that needs to be torn down.
That's correct.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank
I
you.
can add that originally it was a
Mr.
greenhouse,
Hardy, sorry, you'll have
Oh,
a chance
okay.
to speak. Thank you.
just giving him as much information as I can.
You can speak to it after.
Okay,
Sorry, your question was answered, Mr. Purvis? Thank you.
Yes.
And Mr. Marks.
My questions have been asked and answered, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Thiessen, looking at your page 1, what is your best comparable?
The 28 Arnold Avenue would probably be the best one just because it does back on or front onto the exact same park. It's on the same street. And it is quite a bit smaller, but then it's sold for a much higher price. So I'm just saying that even with the idea that they might have started on a renovation and decided to demolish after the fact, that we are still looking at the value of the land being significantly higher than what we currently have it at the 194.
All right. Would you say this is something that is occurring a fair amount in this neighborhood?
The purchase and demolition?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Hardy.
now, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm not big on procedure. I guess my biggest issue is the size of the increases in valuations over such a short period of time. My 2020 was 100,000, and then the next assessment was 138, and now this one is 194. And when I do comparables throughout the neighborhood, from what I see, it's approximately 11%. Now, this is over that period of time, 94%. I just, to me, seems a little bit high. Not a little bit high, very high.
Okay.
Now,
So,
is
Mr.
it-
Hardy, sorry, I'm just going
Yeah.
to interject here for a moment. So you are giving us other properties with assessed values, which we do not look at. We look at sales.
Really, you look at sales.
Yes.
Um,
And the letter you received from the city, it's.
yes, and I saw that. And again, I saw no bare land sales on Arnold specifically. So all I could do was dig up property valuations. Now, to me, if you look at, and if you want to use 28 Arnold, 28 Arnold was a 3-bedroom home. So we just cannot say that property was for rebuild, because at the time of sale 2021, no one would pay $210,000 for a bare lot on Arnold, 25-foot lot. I know for a fact 46 and 44 was a 50-foot lot with a house on it, and that sold for $237,500. But that was with house, with the intention of dividing the lot and building next door to it, which they did, and built 46 Arnold. So that could be a comparison, I guess. But then what's the value of 44 Arnold, the small unit? I didn't want to get into that, so that's because it would just be purely speculation on my part. All I'm looking for is fairness in the system. I don't understand in that I've owned that property for 20 years, and I've seen it go up 94,000 in 4 years. It just seems totally unfair if you look across the board. To be at houses or properties with houses or without. The average is approximately 11% from what I can see. And so all I just wanted to come in and find out exactly how these things are come up with these numbers and is on sales. Well, then wouldn't you do a comparison with a home? The same thing? Like a house to a house,
Which they do, the city does, so.
but they, not from what I could see. Then that's through my comparisons, that's what I saw.
Okay,
But again,
we'll proceed with some questions.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Thiessen?
Yes, thank you. I just have the one question, just with the evidence that you did submit, those are all just assessed values. There's no sales in there.
on the ones that I
The,
provided,
the one that you provided, yeah, the 62, 64, 70, 84,
Oh.
86, 92, Arnold.
no, there's no sales involved here.
Okay,
These
Thank
are
you.
just valuations by the city for 2025.
Okay.
So when I see a house with garage, for 20,000 more than a bare lot. I mean, it would cost more for me to put a sewer into that lot than that difference in increase, so. Again, I don't understand. When I purchased the lot, I did not purchase it for resale, I purchased it to build. But again, that was 20 years ago. And things have changed a lot in 20 years. And I can't say that I would consider building with the valuations currently in place. Taxation would be far too high to build a new house on that lot for myself being retired.
Okay, I have
Not that
no
I couldn't
further
do
questions.
it.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Purvis?
Yes, you had mentioned, you'd said it on the record, so I think we can include it as part of your submission. But there
Yeah.
had been a greenhouse on that property when was it?
There was a greenhouse, Ormson's greenhouses. Which
Okay.
they had several of them in the area going back 20 or 100 years.
Okay, but and that was still there when you purchased property 20 years ago, you tore down?
No, he tore it down. It was a 50-foot lot. He tore it down and he moved 15 feet over to that would be 62 Morley, which left 35 feet.
Okay,
uh,
and
64.
do you live next door to 64 Arnold? Like, is that sort of
I live across the lane on Morley.
on Morley? Okay.
Yes.
And you had mentioned a property at 44 or 46 Arnold that had been purchased and subdivided. Do you recall what year that purchase took place in?
The purchase? No.
No.
No, I could only speculate that it would have been 2017.
Okay, so a few years ago.
Yeah, quite a few, because I believe the bill just completed last year and was sold.
And that was the infill house.
That's right, yes. After the
the-
lot was subdivided,
And the
or after the
original,
lot was subdivided, they built the house and sold it.
but the original house was on the other side of the lot,
That's right, yes.
right? Okay. And you estimate 2017 that purchase took place.
I believe it was around there. I did find it when I was looking at home sales, so I can't recall which year it was, but it is available. I'm sure to you people that peruse this stuff quite frequently. You would know it, you would find it.
Sure, I can't speak for the rest of the panel, but I don't peruse these things. I I
Oh,
peruse the evidence that you
okay.
submit to us. We don't act, we're not authorized, we're not supposed to go and investigate on our own, right? We
Oh, I
take
see,
the,
I see.
we take the evidence of Mr. Thiessen, we take your evidence, and then we make a decision, but,
Right.
yeah, so yeah.
All I know is to build a home there, an average size for that neighborhood, you're probably looking at $400,000+. So, if we said that the lot was worth 194 and you put 400 into building, then your cost would be very close to 600,000. You could probably sell it for 700,000. Now, if that's a fair return on investment, I can't say. I don't know. I just think that it isn't. For what I see it takes to build a home.
Okay, and what do you think that the assessment should be on the property? What do you think the land should be assessed at?
Originally, I mean, I was in shock 2 years ago was when it went from 100 to 138, but I did believe that it was worth approximately that much because I'd had interest in it at the 120 range. So 138, I knew it was worth approximately 138. But this 194, to me is high, quite high. I've never entertained anybody interested in spending that much money on it. Although today, who knows? 2025 land is tight, I guess, and but I have to date not had any offers, any interest. That's all I can say. It's a beautiful property. I planned on building on it because it was across from a park and close to a playground. But time has slipped by. We're getting old.
Okay, that's all my questions. I'd like to turn it over to the other panel members.
And Mr. Marks.
Yeah, just to reiterate, what value would you put on that property now?
I would put between 150 and 160. I'm quite surprised. But thank you for the information. I did try and find what happened on 123 and I couldn't locate anything on it. I'm very surprised that that's sold as high as what's indicated here at 163. But again, as you say, there's diminishing values on a larger lot, right? And there must be, because the entire neighborhood consists of mainly 50-foot lots, and their assessment is not that high. Not that what I would consider to be high anyway. On the 50-foot, on the oak woods and the ball forest and what have you. But anyway, I digress. I've been in that neighborhood far too long.
Okay, thank you very much. Further questions?
Yeah.
I just have one question, Mr. Hardy. Have you ever listed this property?
Never. As I said, I had always planned on building. And now I won't. I'm sorry. I've had one interest. That's my son. But I would never sell it to him that cheap.
All right, thank you. Mr. Thiessen, I'm just gonna redirect to you very quickly. Just your comparables 1 through 3 that are all on Morley. Would you agree that the Morley location would be less desirable than Arnold?
Absolutely, yes, because it does have the bus route and light traffic influences.
All right, and thank you.
I live in Morley. It's a great, it's a great community. People are really good.
It is.
And I used to live on Oakwood many, many years ago, and which is 4 or 5 blocks over.
All right,
And although that was a nice neighborhood, community wasn't as good.
all right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
for-
you.
For coming. this
And
afternoon.
thank you for listening. I'm sure I tried your patience. All right, I can go.
Yeah.
Thanks, nice to meet you or listen to you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. And it's so nice out, I'm even gonna walk home.
Wind is terrible out there.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, okay.
Stay out of the sun or stay out of the wind, in the sun, you'll be okay. All right.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right, we will just move on to item 6. Mr. Thiessen, have you heard anything from this applicant?
I have not.
Thank you, and Ms. Coder, we have heard nothing from this applicant.
No.
Thank you. All right, we will just take a brief recess to discuss whether we are going to hear these 2 properties. You can, yeah, take us off. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call this hearing back to order. And after a brief discussion, we are going to hear items 4 and 6 on the docket. So, Mr. Thiessen, if you could start us off with item 4, please.
Yes, thank you. So the subject property is located at 615 Redwood Avenue, roll number 140-400-63000. It's located in the Inkster Faraday neighborhood. It's a vacant lot, was zoned as R1S for small development. And the lot size is 2282 square feet, and it does have a light traffic influence. The comparables are either in the Burroughs Central, William White, or St. John's neighborhoods. Comparable 1 and 2 are zoned the same as the subject of R1S, and comparables 3 and 4 are zoned as R2 for 2-family build. The lot sizes range between 2276 square feet to 3014 square feet, and there are land influences on comparables 2 and 3. Comparable 2 has the bus route and school influences, as well as the light traffic influence that the subject has. And comparable 3 has a commercial adjacent influence, as well as the light traffic influence that the subject has. Time adjusted sale prices for the comparables range between 70,800 to 97,800. And the time adjusted sale prices per square foot range between 2361 per square foot to 4297 per square foot. The current assessed value is 65,000 or 2848 per square foot, and I believe that value is supported. Thank you.
Mr. Purvis, did you have any questions in regard to what the assessor has just presented?
No, I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
No question. Yeah, this time, thank you.
I also have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Thiessen. And you can move on to item number 6.
Yes, thank you. So this is 237 Lanark Street, roll number 120-710-37000. It's located in the Sir John Franklin neighborhood. It's vacant land zoned as R1M. Lot size of 4943 square feet, and it has a park influence, with the park being in the front of the house, or of the property, sorry. The comparables are all located in the Sir John Franklin neighborhood as well, and they are all zoned as R1M as well. The lot sizes range between 4,079 square feet to 5,801 square feet, and comparable 1 being located on Lanark as well, does also have that park influence, with the park again being located in front of the property. The time adjusted sale prices range between 292,400 to 352,600. And the time adjusted sale prices per square foot range between 60.78 per square foot to 77.71 per square foot. The current assessed value is 300,000 or 6069 per square foot, and I believe that that value is supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
And I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I also have no questions. So thank you, Mr. Jason, for your time this afternoon. And all the items on our docket have been heard, and this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank
You
you,
too.
you too.
Thank you.